guys, welcome to the Palestinian, the Museum of Palestinian People. Today we have Dana here, and I'm just going to tell you a little bit about her pieces before she takes over and starts. So this is called A Land Without People, and what's really special about it is that Dana went to the Library of Congress and she pulled certain photographs that really struck her, like the face or the pose was particularly interesting and meaningful in some way. And she took them, and with mixed media, she stitched and painted in all sorts of different things to bring them a new life. Now, these were taken from a period of time where Palestine was in relative peace and harmony. There wasn't any occupation going on or anything like that. And so, what really touches my heart about these pieces is that it's taking a very beautiful time in the past and bringing it into the modern day visually. And in a way, it's giving us hope that the future will be like this as well. Yeah, so I'd like to introduce her and take it from there. Thank you so much for coming.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for being here. I'm so happy to be here with all of you, and it's such a pleasure to be talking to you here about my collection at the museum. So I'm Dana Barqawi. I live in Amman, Jordan, and this here is my collection, which has been introduced very briefly now. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my background, where I'm coming from, and then I will talk a little bit also about this collection and the technique that I used and the idea and concept behind it. So I live in Amman, Jordan. My father comes originally from Nablus, and my mother comes from Khalil, from Hebron. And my father left Palestine in 1967 when he was 5 years old. And that was the last time he was there, and he never went back. And so I grew up in a house where Palestine was an important topic of discussion. So in every family gathering, it always led up to talking about Palestine somehow, either in nostalgia or in reference to recent political events. And so I grew up hearing about it and hearing about stories about how it looked, how our house there was, how the land there looked like. And so I developed a sense of belonging to a place that I've never visited, that I've never seen. And Palestine became more than a place, it became more of a concept of resistance, of injustice, of existence, of beauty, but also of sadness, of something that is so close yet so unattainable. So I started working on this collection around a year ago, and the title is A Land Without a People, and it refers to the famous claim that Palestine was a land without a people for a people without a land, which was one of the main justifications for the Zionist illegal occupation of the land in 1948. And so all of these photographs are available at the Library of Congress, and they're all of Palestinians before 1948. And the main concept behind this collection, so the artwork, they mainly challenge this claim, they challenge this rhetoric, and they show that there are people, there is a Palestinian history, there is a Palestinian culture and existence. And it defies this narrative that is written by usually but the powerful. So this narrative that intentionally wants to erase a whole people, wants to erase a whole culture. So let me see if I missed anything before I go on to the next point. So Palestinians, they always found a way to resist simply through creating. And so they always created art, embroidery, photography, writings, poetry. So they always found a way to be seen and heard. And I feel that creating is the ultimate way of resistance and to prove existence. So to talk a little bit about the process behind this collection, I used mixed media. So in this collection, I used a lot of acrylic paint and gold leaf and thread on paper. And I like to use paper for this collection because paper has a nostalgic feel about it. And it just felt suitable for this collection. And how I chose the photographs, I tried to focus on ones where there are people sitting in them. It's interesting for me to see, it's interesting the pose of this woman in this picture, or the gaze in her eyes, or what the fishermen are doing here. So it's basically daily life things, or this woman, she's going to the market and she has her child on her back. So it's daily life things that is relatable to everyone. And it's interesting for me to see how the viewer interacts with my artwork. So the viewer is free to imagine what this woman's life was like, what she was doing in the specific moment when the photograph was taken. This woman, these fishermen. So it's also, the viewer is also free to imagine how the artwork was created. How was it being stitched? How was the gold leaf applied? How were all these layers added to the photograph? And I use beauty in my work as a tool to attract the viewer. But also, below all of these aesthetic layers, there is a political agenda, which challenges the current narrative of non-existence of Palestinians. For me, this, as I said before, this took a year to finish, and sometimes I would get an art block, so I would just leave it and leave one piece and go to work on another one. Sometimes something would go wrong as I'm working, or I think it went wrong, but I've also developed a system where I can just work around it and make it work. And sometimes it turns out to be an awesome accident, so it turns out to be even more beautiful than I thought. So I try to not impose myself on the artwork, but rather, if it makes sense, let it show me how it needs to look like. So, for example, when I worked on this one, this was originally a black and white photograph of fishermen and the sea, and then it was an empty sky. And it just felt fitting to add all of this above it. It felt suitable to add those this gold leaf embroidery on the sky above those. So usually I choose the photographs that show me how best they would look like, or how it would end up as an artwork. Yes. So now, let's see what else. Okay. So this is my second collection. I have worked on one similar collection before. So this is the second edition of A Land Without a People, and the first edition was sold out, but everything is up on my website. And also I left my cards here, so you can have my cards and you can look at all of the pictures of the artworks. So this is a 10-piece collection. I only have 6 pieces up here, and the rest is all available on my website. And during my work, I was always worried as to how people would perceive my artwork. So because it's really personal, I'm always working on my own and in my own little space. So I would worry about how this would be perceived by others and how people perceive my work. But I've received really positive feedback over the past works that I did. And I'm curious to see where I will grow more from here as an artist. Yes, and eventually, now I'm working on other commission work, but I also have some ideas for new collections that I want to work on. And I'm also thinking of doing future workshops on embroidery and gold leafing on paper. So this is still all stuff that are still in planning. And yes, I don't know, I hope I conveyed the whole message. And if you have any questions, I would be really glad to